Mhm. Mhm. Hello, everyone. Well,
Hi.
welcome. Oh, my picture's not on.
Wait.
There we go. All right.
Hey, Evan, did you get my text and email?
Was that Kate?
Yes.
No, I don't even know who you are. Yes, I did.
Okay. I was just, is that okay if I keep my camera off and just,
Sure.
okay. I'm so
And
sorry.
no worries. And just a note about cameras. You are
Yeah.
not on the screen, nor is your name shown. You are not seen anyway, unless you speak, which I encourage you all to do. So, so yeah, have your camera off, Kate, because you're driving and all that stuff. But generally, you can keep your camera on so we can all see you and we can all participate here. But it won't be recorded for all posterity, etc. I'm not sure if my hair is good enough to lead this meeting, but we'll just have to all make do. We'll have to all suffer through it together. Set my vanity aside. That must have been somewhere in our homework. Set vanity about your hair aside. I'm pretty sure that was in the fourth paragraph. All right. Let's see. Today I'm going to tell as many jokes as possible,
Please,
funny or not.
please co-host me.
Who are you? Oh yeah, okay, hold on.
That butterfly, Shayna. Wow. The butterfly is amazing.
Yeah, righteous.
Amazing.
Okay. So let's see. Where shall we start? Well, we all sort of had homework, yes. And so and then I sort of upped the ante of the homework a little bit or tweaked the homework a little bit. Um, and so if for those of you who want to, if you just want to kind of check in, oh, a couple things. So we talked about that. The other thing is um please hang out after we stop on the recording because I have for those of you who are in the under earning thing, I sort of want to talk to you guys about a thing, but I don't want to be part of this. So just hang out after for a minute. Um, okay. So, right. So for those of you who want to do kind of a check-in and talk about, I think what we're seeing, if I'm seeing anything, I'm able to stand back, is that doing this work starts to create a little bit of a shift. And the thing that really kind of accelerates it and adds fuel to the fire are sort of the marketing actions, right? On top of this. So just so you know, that's kind of because so much of this under earning disease is about kind of hiding and sort of staying small and staying hidden in the shadows.
Isn't that from our work, the other?
It is. It is. I think I
Just
mentioned
asking. I
I
just,
think I mentioned that on this. I think I mentioned other steps you could do along with these steps to do that. So for those people who are doing that, just a sort of an FYI that because I think what happens is when you do that, when you sort of take the marketing actions in conjunction with this work, it really ups the ante. It really forces the issue. If you feel bad about yourself and you go to a meeting and you don't share and you don't make any outreach calls, it's a little bit easier to just kind of stay stuck. But if you have that inside of you and you have to make the call and you have to get out of yourself, then the terror comes up much more strongly, right? Um, right? I mean, that's kind of how it is. It's like, yeah, it's like, no, the world's going to see how horrible I really am. And so I don't want to expose myself in any way. Okay, so who would like to sort of check in about what's sort of shifting and changing as they find themselves kind of moving through this process? And please don't everybody volunteer at once. It's too much for me to handle. Okay. Look, I
You know,
volunteer.
I always want to go.
Please, please.
Um, so I just want to say, I feel so raw
Yeah.
and I really feel like a little exposed, um, just as a result of the last three sessions we had. And, really checking in with my body and, going into my inner child and sitting with the feelings, like, because they've been coming up, and I'm really seeing how, like, my sex and love addiction and my money are so tied into one another. And it's like, it's humbling and it's also emotional.
Mm. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm really, I had a PRG today.
Oh
And
boy.
I was sharing, and I also shared, for the first time ever in a DA meeting, I qualified on Sunday. So I had a big week,
Yeah.
like a lot of big things in the last couple of days. I feel very emotional, but like safe, you know,
What was that last word? But
safe,
well,
safe.
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
That's
I feel,
that's
I feel safe because I'm being helped by all you wonderful people.
oh, that's beautiful. Make me
Hmm.
cry over here. That's really great. So I just want you to know that that raw, exposed feeling, that means you're doing it right, right?
Hmm.
We're in the process of melting the ice cubes that we are. Every human being, I mean, I have different analogies. One's like each of us is a glacier. One of us, each of us is a big, gigantic, mixed up ball of yarn, right? But in the glacier analogy, it's like we're all slowly melting, right? Because we can relax and let all this stuff go and let it come up and come out because we're starting to feel safe. That's what really trusting life and trusting the universe means, is I can let go and relax and I don't have to hold it all together. That's really the point of all this. When you start to relax and you realize, oh, I'm not holding it all together and fighting every second to survive, and yet I'm still okay. I'm fine. That's kind of the upshot of all this. And then you just learn to relax more and more, and things get better and better. And you're like, oh shit, I've been doing it all wrong my whole life. And it's like and you're like, oh, I'm glad I found this now so that I can just relax and enjoy the rest of it. Right. And of course continue to grow, which is always uncomfortable, but it's going to be uncomfortable anyway. You might as well go through it and use every opportunity of discomfort to break free, since you're going to have to go through it anyway, right? Okay, who else? So beautiful, Kate. Wonderful. Who else wants to share?
Well, I've been feeling kind of raw too, I guess. Um, and gosh, I don't know. So a couple of things, and one is that parts, we were supposed to work on a parts list, and I found a couple of them that I didn't really know about. There's like a young sort of part of me that just doesn't feel like it. This seems
Mm,
really boring and not fun. And I guess everyone probably has that part. But it seems to really come up when I'm sitting down to do certain types of work, you know. Anyway.
that's
Um
wonderful. That's great.
And, I guess I'm having, I should say maybe this is more from the underearners workshop group, but I have had a couple of great successes in terms of marketing actions, including an interview that went really well last week in which I won't go into the whole story. I've been working on getting jobs as a sober companion, sober coach. Um, it's another whole world of work. Um, and I've made some headway. And it's great, amazing. It's just because of doing the marketing actions, but it's also kind of terrifying. Um, and then shoot, there's something else I was going to say. I don't remember what it was. Uh, yeah, I don't remember what it was. So
That's okay. I could
I'll
key
think
right
of
on
it.
that too. Do you want to say anything else? Because there's something I want to say about that.
No, there was something else I was going to say, but I can't think of what it was right now.
If
So
it comes back, you tell us, but just want to key off that terrifying thing. Do you guys get that? Like as you go out into the world and as you step out into the world, it is going to be terrifying. That is the reason you have not been stepping out into the world. It's kind of that simple. You just didn't know that all that stuff was in there running the show and keeping you back. In your mind, you're like, I want this good stuff to happen. But now you're starting to see the reality is I don't want to feel that terror. Therefore, I'm not going to put myself out there. Simple equation, very simple, right? And so this group, the other groups are really about how can I start to address that terror and deal with that terror and start to heal from that terror. I want to say one other thing, because Kate, you mentioned relationships, and I have like a whole little rant. I do on the relationship between that SLAA stuff, relationship stuff, and money. And just to keep it short and sweet, my basic sort of go-to is you can't really have a real committed relationship until you kind of have your money stuff sorted. That's kind of what I've seen. They kind of really do hand in hand. It's like when with my wife and I did that work around the same time. And it's like I wasn't really completely available for relationship until I had that part of my life kind of figured out. And I've seen that with other people. And they very often can't happen together. So that's sort of a side FYI. I must be breaking all kinds of rules here, but
I thought of what I wanted to say,
good, please.
and maybe other people will identify with it, but I'm having a little trouble kind of putting together the hard work I'm trying to do to not work too hard and not try to control everything and the list of things that there are to do. One of the things that's hard is finding time for that many meetings. Uh,
Mm,
and the marketing actions it is a little tricky too, and because it doesn't just take 10 or 20 minutes the way I need to do it right now, it takes a lot longer to
sure.
do each one. And then yeah, but the trying to get to that many meetings is making me feel a little not relaxed and not ease, which is one of the things they talk about in the step two. Part of
Sure.
this book is to take things easy. Anyway,
We're going to talk about, well, and the funny thing is, and I just talked to a very wealthy woman today, um, like neurology, um, a neurology person, right? Doctor, PhDs, all this stuff, own companies and all that stuff, and she said, I just wasn't prepared for when I retired. Um, everybody thinks, okay, I've got this, I'm just going to relax. But the thing is, when you've been going like that for so long, you can't just relax. It's not possible, right? Because a lot of that busyness and a lot of that activity is the same thing. It's to avoid feeling. So if you're overscheduled and over busy and you feel frantic, you can pretty much assure yourself that it's for the same purpose, to avoid feeling difficult feelings. Because the more you are with your feelings, the more you can slow down and take everything a bit by bit. So I think the way you want to address that, Wendy, is you want to take that feeling of overwhelmed or it's hard to schedule all this and deal with that as a part, because it has an emotional thing. So everything that comes to you, always have this option to take it seriously as a real situation, or to look under the hood of it and see that there's really emotion driving this. And what's the emotion? The emotion is, this is too much for me. Is that perchance how the child felt in childhood? For most of us, it is. For most of it is, right? Because all of us were children in dysfunctional families for the most part. And we were in this impossible situation. Like, take my example. I had a rageaholic father and a checked out mother, and I literally had no idea where to go. So here's this little 4-year-old, 6-year-old, 8-year-old going, how do I figure this out? How do I survive? And that feeling of constantly always having to figure it out and hold it together and do everything, until we heal that stays with us. And it can show up oftentimes as overwhelm in our lives, or I'm too busy, or etc. So that's my suggestion with that. It's just, again, everything, you're never upset for the reason you think you're upset. The feelings that you're having are not coming from the events. The events are triggering a landmine or a time bomb that's kind of already there. And so that's how we take more and more and more things and we put them on the conveyor belt of step one. so that we can get them through to step two. Okay, and before I forget, so you sort of listed apart, were there any other things, Wendy, that you saw this week that you were powerless over? Because that was kind of the assignment, right? Make a list of the things you were powerless over, especially parts. So did you see
I
anything else?
started my list by saying everything.
Okay, that's good. I mean,
I am
everything.
powerless over just about everything, except the actions that I choose to take when and sometimes not even those.
Well, exactly. So everything is a good answer if you actually really mean it and you're really living it. That's probably the best answer. But you have to look and see what things are you trying to control? Because if you're trying to control it, then you're not in acknowledgement of the powerlessness over it, right? So you might need to get a little more specific.
I did. I made a whole long list.
Okay, good, good.
I started there.
Any highlights? Anyone that really surprised you?
Um, uh, is- that surprised me.
That you
Uh,
were powerless over?
um, none of it really surprised me. I mean, it is a good long list, but none of it's surprising.
Okay, good. So I encourage you to look at those actions that you think you need to take and see really if you were powerless over those or not. Right? Because can we really get ourselves to act? It's like if the parts cooperate, we can, but if they don't,
Yeah.
right? So are you
I
really
mean, I wrote down like, uh, I mean, I can like, okay, I'm powerless over the health of, oh yeah, I'm powerless over how much one of my dogs pees on the carpet. I just am.
for
Um,
sure?
and I know that, but I'm not powerless over remembering to put wee wee pads down in those spots that she likes.
Yeah. And what are the feelings that come up when she does that?
I'm gonna have to throw this incredibly nice, expensive carpet away.
Which is great, but not a feeling at all.
Um, like how I'm not, like I don't know what to do. Like I don't know how to like what do I do? Is there certain things I should be doing to help prevent this? Are we getting to a point where I'm going to have to say goodbye to her?
Aha,
She's 17. I'm sure I am approaching that point.
there you
So,
go. Right. See, when you
and
get down,
then my other one too, both of them. But anyway,
yeah,
that's
when you get down to the emotion, that's when you're getting down to what's really going on. Right. And there might be some financial fear in there. Do I have to throw the
Oh,
rug
oh,
away?
there's I have spent so much money on these dogs since the beginning of the year, probably like 1,600 or plus dollars, and that I don't really have. And also, you know, I think the other thing that's now that you're putting it that way is what kind of a decision am I meant to make over a living creature's life? That doesn't feel like it should be my decision to make.
Yeah. See, now we're getting down to these are things that you're really powerless over. Aren't you, in fact, powerless over knowing exactly the right thing to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so then that gets us to the gate of step one, where we can start to surrender that decision and start to bring in some wisdom from another plane of existence that can guide us because we don't really know. But we can't really get there to that wisdom until we see our powerlessness. You could live going, well, of course, I have the power to decide, etc. And you would never know, am I making the right decision, right? But you can also let all that go and open it up to the sort of the divine flow to help you with that. So just circling back to Kate, and then we'll go to Natasha. Kate, were there any things on your list of powerlessness that you wanted to share that you saw?
Well, they're written down and I'm driving, so maybe I
Oh,
can
okay.
circle back.
Well, yeah,
Sorry,
we'll come
at
back
the
to you.
end.
Okay.
But I
No,
can
no,
relate to what was just shared. Yeah, everything.
good. Okay. All right,
Okay.
Dr. Natasha.
Well, I would like to read my parts, but I was wondering if you'd expand on your statement that you can't really be completely available for a real relationship until you get that together.
Right, because you're not really self-supporting through your own contributions. So in a sense, you're not really wholly taking care of yourself. And so there's the huge chance that you'll become dependent on the other person, right? And so for a relationship to work, you need two whole people. It's not the notion that there's two half people that can sort of like come together and make one whole person is kind of like a fantasy. So you need this person to be whole and this person to be whole so that they can stand on their own, right?
What if
And
one person is being supported by the other?
um, it's it can sort of be tricky, right? It can sort of be tricky. I remember with my wife and I really encouraged her to sort of like develop her own career because I didn't want her to feel ever like, oh gosh, I can't, I'm not okay for me to buy this or do that or something like that. And you know, and she has and she did, but sometimes she does have that feeling of like, oh gosh, because I don't contribute as much, I don't deserve this or whatever, or you know what I mean? So it's like really strange dynamics can show up in that way. So, but just in general, coming into a relationship, if a person can't take care of themselves, how can they really have enough energy to then give their extra to the other person? Because that's the way I see it in relationships is I need to be self-supporting here. I need to be able to take care of my emotions and do that. And then out of the excess, I share with my wife. And to me, that's a sort of healthy vision of a relationship. And if my money is in turbulence and I can't support myself, then I'm not really totally full. And so I'm not really giving out of my excess. There's probably more need and attachment. There's this really interesting exercise I read in this one book. I think it was called Passionate Marriage or something, where they had you practice this sort of embrace that you stand in. And the practice was make sure you're not leaning and putting all your weight on the other person, that you're both standing there together and holding each other, but one person's not bearing the weight kind of thing. And it's kind of funny when you put people together like this, there is this unconscious thing where somebody will do that kind of thing. And that's kind of symbolic. But anyway, that's a sort of an aside. I opened up that door, so fair
Mm.
question.
So what happened to me is that basically last week was opened up a shit show of emotions that have been unreachable for me, despite doing this kind of work for a long time. Maybe I needed to clear my mom stuff first and also other layers that were, you know, had to be cleared first. But the 5 parts that I am working on specifically right now are anger at my dad, which is rage. The feeling that the part that feels like nobody's standing up for me, especially if I'm in the line of attack. Attaching myself to a miserable person who doesn't want to change, and I try to save them, and I do all the work at great personal cost. That's a dynamic that I've done for years in partnership. Rage at myself for all of the above and my powerlessness, and then also this feeling of dread. Like I have a feeling of dread right now about secretarying a meeting tomorrow because somebody like went crazy and cussed me out last week, and I'm just full of dread. But the truth is that I'm always dreading something. So it just finds something new to latch onto.
Aha.
So
Do you
I
guys
could
catch
say,
that? Yeah.
so I'm just trying to be hyper aware of the fact that these energies are in me, and what you taught me, Evan, about as related to my mom when you changed my life, when you told me that if I thought the suffering I felt about my mom's suffering would end with her dying, I was in for a huge, huge awakening of pain. And that I needed to, the best thing I could do for myself to prepare for my mother's death was to start dealing with the suffering in me, because her suffering was in me now. And so with these things, I have stories attached to all those parts, like the dread. Like I'm dreading being around this woman who cussed me out in front of a whole meeting, you know, blah, blah, blah. And this story legitimizes itself. But the truth is that if I didn't dread her, then I would be dreading flying to New York on Friday. Then I would be dreading my mother's memorial the week after. Like there's always something in life to dread.
Mm.
So it just course corrects like a raptor, like a, you know, and all of those parts always find a story to attach to because the energy's in me. So it's such a different way of thinking about things. It's, but so my homework is to just sit with those parts. I've been doing that. And you guys, I have been so uncomfortable. I can't even tell you, like so uncomfortable. Yeah, like I can barely handle sitting with it, and then I'll go into the story, and then I'm like, you're going into the story now, you're spinning up there on the surface. I'm like, okay, so with the feelings, and I go back down, and then something happens and I'm back up in the story, la 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 la. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Natasha. That's fantastic. And Natasha's demonstrating, you know, what this looks like in somebody who's been doing it a while, and you're opening up to these sort of deeper issues. And what you said about dread, that even if you were to solve it here, it's going to show up here, here, and here. That's what I want you to start seeing about all of your parts. That's why we're naming them, because I want you to keep an eye on them, that they are not solved by solving this situation, that they will show up. And the way I saw this was way back when I was an apartment manager and I was mad at my dad, and I had a situation with my son's mother, and I waited tables. And each one of these, I got the same drug of this highly adrenalized fear. And it took me a long time to realize, wait, I'm always getting a hit from one of these. I thought this situation is causing it, but it wasn't. I was addicted to that drug of highly adrenalized fear. And I had to, in the exact way that we're doing, I had to get off that drug. And to do that, I had to feel the feelings underneath it, right? So that's what we're doing here. And things like that, miracles like what Natasha mentioned about, she was able to walk through her mother's death completely peacefully because she'd done all the work up front and didn't just push it off and then have to suffer for years afterward and be caught in this net. She was able to let her mother go lovingly. So thank you for sharing that. It's a beautiful example of how powerful this work can be and how you can do it proactively in advance of things. And so I don't want to push this sort of notion too far, but there really is this whole thing of like, we can put all this stuff off if you want and just take care of it when you're dying at the last minute, like cramming for a test. Or we can kind
Never
of,
works, which never works.
we can take care of everything now, and all these last remaining years of our lives, we can live free, having let go of all those attachments already. Food for thought. Okay, anybody else want to share? It looks like we'll do Cheryl and then Kelly.
All right. I I love this exercise of writing down a list of things I'm powerless over and then identifying the parts beneath them. This is what I just love about your work. It was like, what's it called? Kudzu? I mean, like all intertangled mess that ultimately had the same root cause of
Mm.
my terror and under earning fears and not being supported by my family. So I have coworkers that don't support me. I have neighbors that don't support me. I just noticed that. I mean, the over and over and over, and I loved it because until I looked at it through this particular window, I thought obviously there are different situations. A situation over there.
Can I pause you right there for a second, Cheryl? Because I just want to point
Yeah,
out to everybody, even the people in the studio audience here, right? That right there is a beautiful example of step one that you just said. A lot of people, when they see like, oh my God, it's here and it's here and it's here, are horrified. But what you said is, it's great because you're seeing it, you're seeing the pattern. And the most important, if we go back to step one, right? Because we want to keep step one alive. I say the seeing and admitting, same thing, that you can see the patterns. You can see what's happening under the hood, really. That's where the freedom begins. So beautiful. So carry on.
yeah. Well, no, that was my, great excitement about this exercise. And I love the way you do it at a deeper level because I don't think I would have noticed
Ew.
this before. Yes, yes. Um, yeah, I should keep going. But the same root, the same source for most of these. So
Yeah.
very
So go,
eye-opening.
yeah, it's a beautiful thing to go, okay, I'm not supported. Like my coworkers don't support me. Go, okay, that's a mirror being held up to me. I don't feel supported. Where does that come from? And if I look back in my life, it's like for you, your brother didn't support you or you felt unsupported by it, right? And so it's like, okay, you see where it started. And then if you look between those two bookends, right, you can see all these times throughout your life where it's been a huge, major running theme. Yes, for your whole life. That's an ism that has spanned decades. And it's like now you're starting to look at it and get under the hood and see it. Now you can start to break free from it. It can stop controlling your actions. You can start to manifest something different. You can start to see that energy, not believe it, and start to manifest supportive relationships. Like that's a very real possibility.
Hard to even imagine. Like last week, I was out of town and my neighbor was incredibly unsupportive of me, and I got triggered and I flew into this rage. And then I got out my handy dandy little sheet here and I go, oh, this is somebody who's unsupportive of me in my life. Where did that come from? So thank you, Evan. Yeah,
Brilliant. Brilliant. It's what you should do. And people don't take me seriously. They have a problem. You know, when I say every problem you have, go get your little list on your phone. I don't care where it is, and look at it and go, okay, the thing that I think is causing this problem, that's not the problem. It's the feelings underneath. Trace those back. That's the sort of work. And they come to me and they go, yeah, but this person, they're going to fire me. And I'm like, okay, but that doesn't have anything to do with anything. That seems like a real situation, but none of them are real. All of them are replays to get you back into that condition of your childhood where you feel safe and comfortable. That's what you know. For you, you have an addiction to being unsupported. That's where you're comfortable. If people were to all of a sudden start supporting you, you would go insane. You would completely lose your shit because that's not what you're programmed for. You don't know what to do with that. And so you need to be unsupported in your life. And then you go, okay, the life is as it should be. Sure, I'm miserable, but I'm supposed to be miserable because I deserve it. Right? This is the way the subconscious works, right? I'm
right.
supposed to be miserable and unsupported. That's the truth of my life. But that's not the truth of your life. That's the truth of your disease's protection mechanisms, which we are starting to
Yeah,
step back from and look at. Beautiful, wonderful. Okay.
yeah, very powerful. Thank you.
Kelly Bobelli.
Hi, everyone. I love how everyone feels rage. It's great. Um, the parts, it'd be like rage and like hiding in my inner voice, the inner dialogue that's horrible. And one thing I noticed, when I read step 2, you said grab stuff, the do's, and the 2 things that stuck out was fighting and arguing. And that means like I'm fighting and arguing with the greater plan, wherever the hell that is. And I had some really good consecutive days. And then I called Cheryl and I was like, "Blah," because where I'm living is not where I want to be. And this is not my home. I want to be in a vibrant city and I want to walk out and see people. Like I'm in the forest. I'm used to living downtown Toronto. So sometimes that can be painful. Like I don't even go on dates
Mm.
and stuff like that. So I was telling Cheryl this, but when I was telling her, there was no feelings attached to it. It was almost like a habit of that dialogue. And then she's like, "Oh well, it'll be taken care of," or something like that. And that stopped it in its tracks. That never happened.
Mm.
Yeah. And then a bunch of other stuff happened. But then like I will, like yesterday was a bad day. Like I would rage out. Like I scream. The only way I can get it out is I have to scream the top of my lungs.
Mm.
I feel powerless. I just feel powerless living here. Like I don't
Yeah.
have money to remove myself enough.
And do you get that it's perfect that you're living there? We soon take quite another view of our housing situation. Right. And this is not a Pollyannish, like we're trying to put a smiley face on it, right? The feeling that you're having. So the rage is pretty clear, right? You're pretty clear that you're powerless over that rage. Yeah. And the feelings that you have, and I don't exactly sure know how to characterize them, whether they're loneliness or fear of missing out or pain of abandonment. I'm not sure in terms of you're being in the forest and you want to be in the city and you want this connection, right? Um, um, that pain that you feel, that's a big piece of powerlessness, right? And so that's not, that pain that you're feeling is not a result of you being in the country when you want to be in the city. Right? That's the trigger. Right? So that pain is an ism. It's a part. And if you go back and you look, where have you experienced that pain? And what would you call that pain? Just to give it a name, just give that part kind of a name. What would you call that?
Tight.
It's tight, right? But it's like, I don't know if it's like an angry loneliness or like what would like how would you classify it? I mean, the feeling of it is quite intense, right? It's like you're really angry about being cut off. It seems like. Is that fair?
Yeah, and I did it to myself. I couldn't provide for myself.
Right. So are those two separate pieces? Is it I'm mad at myself because I got myself into this situation and I'm also mad that I'm separated and alone? Maybe. And you'll have to kind of look at that. But so again, but if you look, can you remember a time when you felt that way, that sort of pain of being alone when you were a kid?
A few times,
Yeah.
and I would um when you rage out, you like get it out. I used to like kick holes in walls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So and then so that's a really helpful thing to see that like that kind of rage being alone, right, was there then, it's here now. And if you look back, you'll see that it happened many times in between. And so in the same way, this is part of what's become comfortable for your system. And we have to bring a lot of love and consciousness to it to start to get something else to manifest. Because right now you're programmed to that kind of thing. Right? That's why we're powerless. You're powerless over that whole system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And the fact that you're feeling all these intense feelings, that's great. I mean, it really is. I know it doesn't feel good to all of you. I mean, I understand that it doesn't feel good, but these are all feelings that we've all been running from for so long. And you have to also admit that somewhere inside of you, it also feels good to just kind of stop running and just kind of go, okay, I'm not going to run anymore. Right. And that really is the beginning of healing when you say, okay, I'm not going to run. These feelings move through you. They do. They will. And you're going to find a lot of sort of space and peace and light on the other side. So Kelly, you're doing really wonderfully well. And also, have I talked about backlash in this meeting? Okay, I have to pause for 1 second and do that. Whenever you have an expansion, when you have a sale or when you have a good interview or whatever it is, an expansion where you go, oh, I'm stepping into it. There is always going to be a backlash and a contraction afterward, because it's kind of like the disease is a living organism to some degree. And when you sort of shine brightly, the system goes, no. We can't have that. And they try double hard to pull you back to where you were. That's just how it works. So the more you're aware of that, and you're aware that that's a sign that you're actually progressing, because the disease, if you'll notice, does not like to be out in the open. That's why when we start to name these things, it's really helpful. They like to work on you from the shadows. When they say like, you know what, you suck, and you turn around and you go, I'm not even here. That's how they like to operate, most of them, right? It's like, I don't even exist. Nobody said that. And they control you in that way. But when you start to move past them, they get really mad because they're fighting for their survival. And you know what their food is? Your misery. So the longer they can keep you trapped in the cycle of misery, the more full and nourished they get. Okay, well, I've completely mismanaged this whole thing today because we're going in and it's really beautiful. We're going into all this stuff, but we haven't even started to talk about step 2. So
But
hold on.
can I just say one thing, that
If it's extraordinarily short.
the proportion of the backlash can be measured, can be can tell you how real and how deep the growth was. That's an important.
Great. Yeah, great. Okay, Dr. Shana? Professor Shana? Professor Dr. Shana?
Oh my. Okay, well, let's see. I'm super aggro and feeling scratchy, like I don't have clarity over how or who to do these marketing calls, even though I am taking some actions. But I just feel like I'm just always in vagueness and I can't figure anything out.
Hmm.
But
Okay. Is that a new feeling?
no, but I think that the desire to change is so strong that it's like a big battle going on
Mm.
inside of me. And then this thing that you said about not being fully available for a relationship until we have our money together, it just
Yeah.
like is like a dagger in my heart because
I'm sorry.
no, it's good to hear. But you know, I'm in a I mean, it's been almost 3 years, but it's, you know, he's like here renting my pool house, which was my Airbnb. We're talking about getting married. It's a new relationship for me. I haven't had one for a very long time, but I don't have my money together. I have a lot of debt. And anyway, I just that was a lot to take in. So and
Yeah.
I kind of lash out at him a little bit too because but he's helping me. There's good, I mean, I have good things to report too, but the two-way prayer is helping. Really like slowing down and letting myself just feel the disease of my thinking, the like how I imprison myself and then trying to like just have those feelings. And then I'm setting a timer for like 11 minutes and 11 seconds. And then
Mhm.
just like, okay, now what would your higher power say? You know, and just trying to be like, you know, like, right. But
I love it.
yeah, I don't know if I've like figured anything out or fixed anything, which is what I want to do. You know, I just want to figure it out and fix it and move on down the road. And it just doesn't work
Right.
like that.
That's what the fixer wants to do.
Right.
So you can notice and catch that energy. That's the energy of the disease. The
Yeah.
disease wants to get away from the feeling.
Yes.
Wants to do. The ego wants to say, I don't want to feel any of the pain.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back. You said something
Mhm.
here. You know, like you guys are so this is really wonderful. I hear everybody's kind of in the same boat. It's raw and it's and there's a lot of stuff coming up, and that is exactly how it should be, right? You know, when you hear admit my hopelessness, that's not really the way to describe, oh, I've got this client and this is going on and this is great and I've got the, you know, it's like that's what comes um when you're entering into the new world. That's what happens on the other side of the spiritual awakening, that stuff, right? Right now, we're still in the tearing down phase. Like one of my favorite analogies is when you buy an old apartment building and you're going to build a brand new skyscraper on that site. Do you start building right on top of the old apartment building? No, nobody would ever do that. You're going to completely rip out the entire apartment building all the way down to the foundation. You're going to break up the old foundation. You're going to dig deeper and you're going to make a foundation that can propel you skyward. And in all the cases where I have doubled or tripled my income, had breakthroughs, there's always been this contraction first, this painful kind of thing before kaboom. So I just want to prepare you guys for that emotionally, that that's why the step one is the way it is. It's this falling apart, things kind of getting messy and getting worse, right? Because we're getting down to the real thing. All your real genius is being covered up by all this junk. So we have to see the junk and get rid of it. And then the real magnificence can come out. It's just not a neutral process because these parts fight, as you guys are seeing. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about step two. And just, you know, to be fully forthcoming, I made a total hash of this and didn't manage my time well. So let's, which is great. Uh, it's fine. Let's go through a little bit of step two. And I just want to sort of point out the things that I see. I trust that you guys all made a list, a nice long list of step two. And we looked at it last week. So we all kind of know where we started, right? We started with take it easy. So I'm going to go through the ones that I saw, and going through it again, just to double check my notes to make sure. Take It Easy was our first one, but on the page right before that, I saw this. So I did something a little extra, right? This was not in your assignment, but if you want to go back and do this for extra credit, I will definitely give you a gold star, at least a gold star. But what I saw was this. I saw at this juncture, his AA sponsor usually laughs. This, the newcomer thinks, is just about the last straw. This is the beginning of the end. And so it is. The beginning of the end of his old life and the beginning of his emergence into a new one. So I put this in step 2, right? And I'd love for all of you to sort of take that on, right? And it's something. So what I did is I looked at some things that weren't specific actions and I took the spirit of it and said, what if that was an action? So I have a couple of these in here. This is one: be willing to enter into a new life. Can each of you accept that that is the process that you are in right now? You are in this tearing down phase, right? Didn't the sponsee say, this is just about the last straw? It's like, I can't take it anymore. He's in this thing of like, the humiliation, the pain, it's too much. But can you see and accept that this is not just wasted suffering? I have not brought you here just so that I can exacerbate your suffering, right? The suffering is coming from looking at these things that are these parasites that live in you, these leeches, and kind of burning them off. And you say that hurts, and you go, yeah, but getting the leech, how good are you going to feel when you don't have all these creatures feeding on you anymore? That's kind of the process that we're in. So just be willing to enter into a new life. Okay, I'm just going to read the ones that I have and my extra little notes. Take it easy. Relax. Don't work at it very hard. You guys already seen the theme of step 2? Now, everybody talks about the first 3 steps are action steps. If you look at it here in the 12 and 12, what's the action of step 1? What was that, Natasha?
Hit bottom and admit complete defeat.
Right. To the verb I use is allow, just to allow it all to fall apart, right? Now you can characterize that however you want, right? Hit bottom, admit complete defeat, humble myself. You might be even humble yourself, like that could be the thing. But that's the action that's pretty clear from the step. So yeah, there are actions, but there are these much more esoteric actions than I hit the pavement and hand out resumes, right? It's not those kind of actions. This is a deeply introspective action that we're taking. There's one here. I did this extra credit one. You don't have to believe anything. And I put, don't believe anything. Because as you'll see, as the step goes on, this is all about relaxing, surrendering, keeping an open mind. What I want you to do is not decide and latch on to a belief. Just keep your mind constantly open. And you'll see that it mentions having an open mind in here about 5 times. So if you read the step on face value, it's come to believe in a power greater than myself, right? It's come to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity, right? But when we look at the action of the steps, it's like, quit bothering yourself about deep questions. Stop fighting. Stop arguing. Stop debating. When this is all code for put your mind at rest. Don't work so hard, right? Am I making any of this up, or is this what it says? Yeah, okay. So don't swallow all of step 2 right now. That's code for don't try to get it in one day. If you have a part that's trying to get it in one day, again, that's your disease. It's trying to fix and manage and cure and solve the puzzle. That's the energy that we don't want. Take it piecemeal. Have a truly open mind. Resign from the debating society. Quit bothering yourself with deep questions. Keep a truly open mind. Search and research again and again, always with an open mind. When you read it like this, it's like obnoxious how it's just saying the same thing again and again in 20 different ways, right? It's like, relax. You could even say, I think it actually says this, right? In so many words, relax, don't try to figure it out. Right? If you wanted to sort of encapsulate step 2, relax, do not try to figure it out. Search and research again and again, always with an open mind. Admit that AA shows prodigious results. Admit that my attitude has not been scientific. Stop arguing. Here's, I think, probably the most important one in this. So everybody should have this on their short list. Begin to see and feel. So right now, just in case you haven't caught it already, we are prioritizing feelings above everything else, especially when we're talking about powerlessness. Right? Do you notice that the things that you are actually really powerless over? We all know, because we're all good 12-steppers and Al-Anoners and all of that. We know we're powerless over people, places, and things. That's easy. But what we're really powerless over is our emotional reactions to life. That is what is kicking the crap out of us. Here's another one that this is the spirit of the whole thing. Allow step 2 to gently and gradually infiltrate my life. That really captures the spirit of the whole thing. Stop fighting. Look and listen. So if you look at this, there's very much an open-minded, more kind of observational energy to this step. Like I used to lead step 2 workshops, right? And so I would have people, we would show this great little clip about Mary Poppins, where the little kids make a wish list of who they want their nanny to be, and then I have people make a want ad for their higher power. And that's a great exercise, right? Just to even open up to the possibility of what could be, that you could have a loving higher power. Right. But the spirit of this step is very much keep an open mind. Allow something else to come in. Begin to talk of God. I changed that. You can fire me if you want to. Begin to talk to God. Try it out. See if it works. Find a faith that works. Look for our lost faith. Reconsider or die. Place humility first. I sent this one to Natasha before the meeting. Calmly accept impossible situations, seeking neither to run or recriminate. That's a badass one right there. That's like some serious ninja stuff, though, right? That's the result of a lot of work, where you can go into a situation and somebody attacks you and you're like, oh, okay. Well, I hope you have a nice day. That's like, that's when you really have started sort of answering some of your demons, right? Pay the price of humility. Accept the fact that I'm mentally ill. I think that should be on everybody's because it's such a challenging idea. I love it. I love it. Rightly relate ourselves to him. Certainly, you can change that to God or to the divine feminine, whatever sounds right to you. Okay, were there anything that I kind of missed there in that? Did you guys all get some, or did I sort of get some that you didn't get? Anything that popped out to you that you wrote down that I missed? Because it's entirely possible, because I had to kind of redo mine. Yes, Wendy.
I wrote down, stop worrying if it was the chicken or the egg that came first. And
Great.
for me, what that meant was it doesn't necessarily help to analyze history or go back in time.
I think that captures the spirit of the text beautifully. Perfect. Anybody else?
How about rely, not defy?
That I think that fits the step, again, the spirit of the step perfectly. And it's a nice short one, right? It's a nice short one.
Yeah. And then ask what God's will is for me. Don't tell God what his will ought to be.
I think that's very good. Now, the only thing here, right? Sometimes I see people get into this trap of trying to skip step 2, right? They have a problem and they try to turn it over to God. And I want you to avoid this pitfall. Whenever you have a part, whenever you have a problem, that part cannot see God, does not believe in God. So all your faith and all that stuff doesn't really help. You have to, with that part, go through the dark tunnel, because that part, you got to get that part, essentially a wounded child, right? Has been like in the corner with its head turned away and hasn't seen all the good things that have happened to you and the light that's shown. It's basically trapped in fear, huddling in the dark with its head turned away. So it doesn't really even know that there's a positive, loving force in the world. And if you check in with these parts, you'll see that it's true. You'll see that it's completely shut off from any light. And when you start to, when you very begin to try to bring some light to these parts, they react. they go, screw you. If it's a really new part that's opened up, they're like, get away from me. They don't even want any light because they don't trust it, because they've been in the dark so long. You know, it's like finding a wild dog. You try to help it, you try to like feed and water it, and what does it do? It bites you. It does not trust you. It doesn't go, oh, I see your innate goodness and I see that you're trying to help. No. Each one of these parts that we uncover newly is a terrified, wild, wounded animal ready to strike. That's why you guys are going through so much suffering. And this is why you've avoided certain things in your life, because the idea of letting this wild animal out of the cage that can destroy things is like, why the hell would I ever do that? Right? And for those of you who are dealing with rage in this process coming up, I just want you to know that this rage is such a beautiful thing. It is such an incredibly, wonderfully healthy thing. Right. So, like, I had a father who was a rageaholic. That acting out that anger in that way, that was not healthy. But the anger that the child had toward being treated, how he was being treated, that is healthy. And it's not the same. And my, like, that little kid in me thought that my anger at my father was the same as his rage, and so shut it down and pushed it down forever. But it's not. It's completely different. It's the spirit of, I deserve to live and I want to live, and leave me alone. That's the spirit of that. Where that other kind of rage comes from, I can't be with this feeling, and so I have to act it out on the people around me. I'm so, it's like, I cannot be with this feeling. Ah, so we learn how to be with that energy. So the spirit of this, so next week what we'll do is you'll each come with your short list, and we'll just look at it and we'll double check it and we'll make sure. And for this week, because we're just getting into this, just start to wade into, and I'll say one thing. So I guess we're going to go a little bit over. I'll just say one thing. The essence of this step, right? If you really get rightly related to step 1, and you see your powerlessness, especially over the intensity of the emotions, the basic idea of step 2 is you allow those emotions to come in and you don't fight them. You allow them to be, because now you are humbling yourself. You are saying, I can't fix this. And so you don't try to fix it.
Wait, you said allow is for step 1. Allow
Oh,
it.
yeah, I usually allow for step 1 and step 2, to be honest, most of the time. I think it's kind of the same thing. I allow that. You could say the spirit of step 1 is C, but for me, I have to allow all that stuff to come. I have to allow myself to get even down to the feelings. And once I've gotten down to the feelings and seen that that's what's at the core of this, then I need to allow myself to feel them.
How does
Yeah.
that relate to relax and take it easy?
Oh, because I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. Now, for those of you who've been with me as we've sat and we've walked somebody through their feelings, there's always this feeling of, we're not doing anything at all. We're observing. That's maybe the most that we're doing. But there's a shift that takes place energetically. A shift takes place. Who's doing that? It's not us. Because if we tried to do it, the shift wouldn't happen. Because the part would say, why are you trying to change me? Leave me alone. But when you come to it with this love and acceptance, We're not doing anything. And this presence that we call God or the universe or whatever heals it in the same way that you put a Band-Aid on a cut, you come back a week later and it's healed. You didn't do it. Right? So like with the stuff that you're processing, Natasha, you can't do anything about that, but you can relax and take it easy and allow that rage to be there and not chase it away. I know, I know, I know. But also think about how badass it is, because I'll tell you, being on the other side of, you guys are going through this one big bottom. And in the last 5 years, I've probably done 15 of these, right? So it's like I have a lot of experience with this, right? And you get to be a bit of a badass. It's like you wake up and you squat 450 pounds. You know what I mean? There's a strength and a fitness in this that also gets developed as you and it's a strange thing because this is a spiritual awakening, but it's also a practice, right? You get better at it as you do it. You get better at identifying, oh, here's this thing that comes up. I need to surrender this. Just like last time and the time before, I told you about my yogi friend who fell off the mountain. He'd been practicing surrender. He knew instinctively to surrender. He knew instinctively to surrender when he fell, right? And that's what we're learning is, oh, there's a crisis. We automatically go into crisis management mode. We go into telling the person off. We go into all the things we always do. But slowly we start to realize, oh, I was about to tell that guy off and I'm not going to. Because, oh, that rage that I'm inside, that's happening inside of me. Oh, this is the rage of the child who was hurt and got the shit kicked out of him. Oh, okay. I can be with that. I can be with that child. And when I do that, it gets healed. And then the next time I'm less likely to, I'm less likely to rage and act out, but I still feel the feelings and I go into it. And in two-way prayer one time, my higher power said, every time you touch these things, they dissolve. And that has been true for me. They just get better and better and better. And so this is a positive spiral as opposed to addiction, which is a negative spiral. Every time you heal from something like this, it increases your capacity and your strength and your presence and to enable you to heal something else. Right, Natasha? You processed your mother, right? And you got a bit of a break. I usually time it at about a month and a half, depends, right? You go through something big, you get a month off, and now, boom, here comes father stuff because you're strong enough now to handle it because you dealt with this strong mother stuff. And can you tell me honestly that you don't feel stronger as a result of walking through that mother stuff?
Oh, I got to have like the best weeks of my life because of going through that. Like unprecedented peace.
Yeah. And now your coach, God, has taken a lot more weight and put it on the bar, and you're like, I can't do this. No way can I do this. But you will, and you'll come through the other side of it, and you'll be that much stronger and that much more peaceful. So she's a living example right there of exactly what we're talking about, of walking through this emotional storm to get to the other side and have freedom on the other side. And it's not the kind of freedom where it went away for a little while. Like I was on a diet and I lost a bunch of weight, and then, oh shit, I didn't maintain my discipline, and then I gained it all back. That's not what this is. This is not. This is actual freedom, where the things that used to bother you, it talks about in the big book, neutrality, the things that used to bother you don't bother you anymore. It's a very real thing. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm sharing this with you, because all of this stuff, as incredibly strong and powerful as it is in you, this system was designed to heal that and change that. And it can change and it will change as long as you stay in the process. Okay, so next week we're going to look at the short list. We're going to have a short list, and we'll probably do a little bit of practicing of kind of like, how do I sit with these emotions in this step 2 kind of a way? How do I allow? How do I stop running from the feeling? Yeah. Any last quick questions? Because God, I was feeling so good about myself. I was ending early and on time, and now look at us. Phew. Next week, Natasha, I'll have you time people and even me so I don't talk too much after people share. So that
Never. never. And also I won't be here next week because I have the audio awards next Tuesday.
Fine. You're excommunicated. No. Good. I hope I bid you good fortune with that. It's okay. I can time people myself. I can. So any quick questions before we wrap up today? Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the recording and then we can talk about other stuff if you want to stick around. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you. Thank you so